How you doing, guys? Mr. McGuire here. Today is Monday, March the 30th. Wet, cold, rainy outside. I don't know where you guys are at, but it's definitely raining where I am. Hope you guys are doing good. I really enjoyed speaking to you guys on the phone last week. It was good to hear your voices and know that you guys are doing okay. Some of you guys also shared that this is very difficult times for you guys. Some parents out of work. Money, it's a stretch, and I just want to let you know that I'm really sorry to hear that, and you're not alone. If I can do anything, if I can be of assistance of any way, send me an email, reach out. Just know that you're not going through this alone. So you had really good answers for last week's chicken soup story, so I'm going to go ahead and fire off the one for this week. Little change in story due to kind of the circumstances. So sit back, get comfortable, and let's take on this week's story. The title is The Birth of an Adult. Okay, I like the title already. Martin Luther King Jr. has the opening quote. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenges and controversy. Again, very appropriate for where we are today. The doctor started to rush into the room. The delivery was going smoothly, but to me it felt like hysteria. The best setting for Jamie's labor, but it was going to have to do. This wasn't the best setting for Jamie's labor, but it was going to have to do. Jamie was only 17 years old and a junior in high school, and now she was giving birth. She lay back in pain. The only movements consisted of her shaking her head from side to side in an effort to try to escape the pain. I took Jamie's hand, comforted her, trying to soothe her agony. She would open her eyes and look at me. I tried to feel the emotion that she was feeling, but I had no idea. I always knew Jamie would challenge me to better myself. I didn't think it was going to be being her sidekick during her pregnancy. All this began the afternoon of New Year's Eve, 2015. I sat in Jamie's basement awaiting the urgent news she just had to tell me. She collapsed onto the couch and told me she had broken up with her boyfriend, Eric, who had left the country to study abroad. This came as so much of a relief, although I tried not to show it. I didn't think too much of Eric or really any other guys she had dated. Okay, I was a tad bit jealous, but I had convinced myself that we were just better off as friends. And at this point, she needed one. The real news came. She was 6 weeks pregnant. Tears rolled down her face as she told me. I sat in shock and disbelief. The words were not registering in my head. She reached out to give me a hug. It must have lasted only a couple of seconds, but it seemed like hours. My arms were still by her side. We talked for a while, and then I left her house and drove home. I was in shock. I was upset of her lack of self-control because this whole ordeal could have been prevented. I was too young to deal with her pregnancy, and I wasn't even her father. Being a 17-year-old and a junior in high school, that's confusing enough without having to put a baby in the mix. That evening, I arrived at a party to drink my worries away. The air was filled with smoke and people were partying, drinking. I couldn't take the atmosphere very long, so I left. I went to Jamie's house. I stood on her front porch thinking, what should I do? My foot started to turn away from the door, but as soon my hand reached out and I pushed the doorbell. I wanted to run and go back to the party. I wanted to have fun. It was New Year's Eve after all. Suddenly the door opened and Jamie stood in the doorway with her head down. You can't spend New Year's Eve by yourself, I blurted out. She smiled, we hugged, and this symbolized the beginning of a new journey. That night we sat and laughed. We watched them ring in the new year. After that night, my life would change. I wouldn't be a crazy teenager anymore. I would become a young adult. Weeks went on. Jamie finally told her parents about the pregnancy. She and her parents made the decision to go through with the pregnancy, but she was going to give it up for adoption. My parents talked about it with her parents and they offered support. It was kind of like they were discussing our marriage. Jamie and I were kind of growing up and maturing together. During her first trimester, I found myself at Jamie's house every day after school. I would give her foot massages to help her relax. We would watch TV together. She wasn't able to walk that much, so I would make food for her, make runs to Taco Bell. My friends were not that considerate about what I was going through. I was helping a friend. They were busy making fun of me. They would call Jamie's house wondering what I was doing. They already knew, they just wanted to poke fun. At school, the jokes were all around. Oh, are you going to be a good dad? So what are you doing this weekend, learning how to change diapers? I just blew them off and ignored them. My friend needed me, and I was there. I kept going on with my daily chores and tried to focus on Jamie. I tried to make her life as easy as possible. Later on one Saturday afternoon, I was catching up with Jamie, and she said, "What do you want to do today?" I said, "What do you got in mind?" She said, "I want you to help me choose the baby's family." My ears turned hot. I felt uneasy, but I told her I would help her. As I drove to her house, I thought about how much I had changed. I was more responsible, but I still thought I was a teenager. I had no business choosing a path for an unborn child. I arrived at her house and helped her into the car. We were driving to the adoption agency. Jamie pointed out, "Hey, you're not speeding anymore." It occurred to me that I no longer was a crazy driver thinking about how fast I could get from one place to the other. I was now responsible for making sure she got to where she needed to be safely. "Hey, I'm driving for 3 now," I told her. We arrived at the agency and we were seated in a conference room. 50 folders lay on the table, each one containing a couple. Each one of these folders would be the one that would get Jamie's baby. One of these couples would be the parents. The counselor and Jamie and I went through each folder discussing their background, financial, psychological, spiritual, emotional. I started going through the folders and I saw one which read Jen and Benjamin. The folder looked more like a booklet. They had pictures of where they had been and things about what they wanted to become. Their explanation of why they wanted a baby caught my attention. This couple intrigued me, and as we were narrowing down the couples, I had narrowed it down to 2, Jennifer and Ben, and the one Jamie picked. Finally, we agreed on Jennifer and Ben. We were getting up to leave, and I took a picture of Jennifer and Ben out of the folder, and I slipped it into my jacket pocket without Jamie noticing. I wanted to have a record of them before their life would be changed forever. I put it in my jacket as we left the agency. It was a miserable, cold spring day. After helping Jamie into the car, I walked around, and a warm breeze kind of hit my face. It was a cold day, but the wind was warm like August. We drove away, and I thought about the decision we had made. I thought about the families we didn't pick. How much longer would it take for them to receive a child? A few weeks later went by, and I finally met Jennifer and Ben. They impressed me. They were a close couple. They would apply the love they had for each other to Jamie's child. Jamie told them I had urged her to pick them, which made this meeting even more overwhelming for me, but I tried not to show it. They urged Jamie to take childbirth classes so that they would be ready for the upcoming events. She needed a partner for the class, so naturally I agreed. Every Tuesday night, Jamie and I would attend this class together. The first class was kind of weird. I'd never felt so out of place in my entire life. Jamie and I sat down together, trying to ignore the other 7 married couples staring at us. We were way too young or too ignorant to be going through pregnancy and birthing classes. Nevertheless, Jamie had to do it, and I wouldn't let her do it alone. After time, we began to bond. Everyone realized what a struggle it must for us to get this far. During the mommy time, the dads and I sat outside talking about the baby's future. The dads talked about Pee Wee football, insurance. I talked about Shakespeare and geometry. I was so out of place, but I realized there was more to giving birth than just 9 months and a doctor. So much freedom had been sacrificed. The dads respected me and praised me for helping out a friend. I still just couldn't believe I was sitting around talking about babies. I wanted to be innocent again. I wanted to drive my car fast, go to parties, but more importantly, I was maturing. I was getting ready for school one morning when Jamie called me from the hospital. "Hey, you want to get over here?" she said. "No, I don't have time for another doctor visit. I can't miss any more class." "Well, you may want to get over here because I'm having the baby," she shouted. I ran out of the house, darted to the hospital. The nurse handed me a mask and some scrubs. I entered the room, and there she lay there. "This is it," she said, "9 months, and it's finally here." Doctors were in and out of the room every couple of seconds with medication. She was about to give birth. I walked out of the room, and after a few hours, she had the baby. When I walked back in, she grabbed my hands. "It's a boy," she said. I smiled. Tears ran down my cheeks. No more fear, no more chores, just pure happiness. The baby was handed to me. I looked into the child's eyes. He looked up at me. Jamie said, "You did it." The doctors left us with the baby. Ben and Jen came in with the birth certificate. "What's his name?" Ben asked. Jamie motioned for him to get a little closer, and she whispered in his ear. Ben smiled and went into a different room. I walked outside to get a drink. I came back a few minutes later and saw the birth certificate. It read, "Blake Jonathan." I smiled. The doctors brought Blake back in. They passed him to me, and I held this new life in my hands. I thought about the dads in the birth class. I thought about Blake's future, his first steps, Pee Wee football, the first day at school, this first broken heart. All the dads finally caught up with me. Jennifer and Ben looked at me and smiled. Tears rolled down their cheeks. I gave Blake to Ben and received a big hug from Jennifer. They were his parents now. They were his keepers. Jamie just lay there crying, but filled with delight. I went over to give her a big hug. "Everything's okay," she said. I said, "Fine, absolutely fine," I whispered, and kissed her on the forehead. I would never be the same again. True story told by Jonathan. Opening quote by Martin Luther King. "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenges and controversy." Martin Luther King Jr. So, really neat story. Again, I don't know about you. I've never helped out a friend give birth, but I've definitely been available to a friend whenever they needed help. Whether that means just listening or giving advice or getting in the car and heading over to a friend's house. Help comes in a lot of different forms and fashions. So your assignment for this week, I want you to write me a short story, 1 page, and tell me of a situation where you helped a friend in need. Or if it's easier, tell me a story about when you got helped by a friend when you were in need. I'll let you choose either way. I miss you guys. I really hope you're doing well. This is Mr. McGuire signing off. You guys have a great week. Love you guys. See you soon.